Liechtenstein is the fourth smallest country in Europe and the sixth smallest in the world. The capital of Liechtenstein is Vaduz and it is nestled between Austria and Switzerland. It has just under 40,000 inhabitants and an area of only 160 square kilometers, which is 1.5 times the size of the island of Sylt. But how could such a tiny state survive in the middle of Europe? The state of Liechtenstein was founded as early as 719. At that time, the county of Vaduz and the lordship of Schellenberg merged. However, the state remained part of the Holy Roman Empire. It was only after the dissolution of the Holy Roman Empire that it belonged first to the Confederation of the Rhine, then later to the German Confederation, and was finally able to gain full sovereignty in 1866. However, while in other German states in the 19th century industrialization set in and the state systems were modernized, little changed in Liechtenstein and it continued to remain an absolutist state. Shortly after the dissolution of the German Confederation in 1866, the military was also abolished in Liechtenstein, and they tried to adopt a neutral stance in the future, similar to Switzerland. Incidentally, the country has no military to this day, making it only one of 4 countries along with Costa Rica, the Solomon Islands, and Tuvalu that is completely without armed forces. The country finally managed to remain completely neutral during World War I, but this did not mean that the country was not hit hard by its effects. Due to severe economic problems, there was a call for political reform after the war. This is what happened and the power of the prince was more restricted. Sudan gave itself a democratic constitution with many elements of direct democracy strongly reminiscent of Switzerland. After a customs treaty was signed with Switzerland in 1923, the country's economy began to boom. The country was characterized by a very liberal economic system and low taxation, from which many still benefit today. It also adopted the Swiss franc as its currency. The country also managed to remain completely neutral during the Second World War. For example, the border with Austria was completely sealed off by fences and barriers over a length of 14 kilometers, which were secured with the help of Swiss border guards. After the Second World War, the economic boom continued and the country developed very quickly from an agricultural state to one of the most advanced service nations. Since the advantageous economic conditions in the small country attracted many emigrants, a law came into force in 1972, limiting the number of foreigners to 1/3 of the local population. Nevertheless, the clocks tick somewhat differently than in the large neighboring countries. Women's suffrage was not introduced at the state level until 1984, the third attempt, and the principality did not join the United Nations until 1990. Incidentally, the parliament is tiny compared to the German Bundestag, with only 25 members. Politically, the prince still has a large say, as he has the right to veto any decision. Even in a referendum in 2012, which called for a restriction of the veto right, it was rejected with over 75% of the votes. Here, the good relationship between the population and the princely family becomes clear. The princely family of Liechtenstein are among the oldest noble families in Europe, as they were first mentioned in 1136. Economically, the country is still specialized in the service sector. Especially banks, trustees and other financial service providers make up the majority of the economy. There are more jobs than the country has inhabitants, which is mainly due to the strong border traffic and the many commuters. Most of them come from Switzerland. In addition, the country has one of the highest density of companies in the world. Due to its very low taxation, Liechtenstein was considered a tax haven for a long time. In addition, a massive tax evasion scheme involving Liechtenstein banks came into light in 2008, which is why the government urgently felt compelled to initiate some reforms. Thus, in 2009, a transparency and reform package was adopted, removing Liechtenstein from the OSCE's blacklist of tax havens. In 2011, Liechtenstein also joined the Schengen Agreement, as a result of which border controls have now been completely eliminated.